An aspiring singer struggles with a new lover, rival musicians, angry bandmates, and an abusive father. Special guest Clinton Festa joins us to talk about resting Prince face, Folds LLC, and how to respond when someone says, "I would die for you." Dearly beloved, we are gathered here today to find out if Purple Rain stands the test of time.
Test of time, James and Alan have their say. Do the movies you love still hold up today? James says Gladiator with a glut. Alan says as a father, blah blah. It's the test of time, James and Alan have their say. Do the movies you love still hold up today? Test of time, James and Alan have their say. Do the movies you love still hold up today?
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Test of Time. I'm James Brief, and joining me once again, as always, is our director, the man who puts this together and gives you this souffle of movie delicious commentary, my buddy and pal, Al Noah. How are you doing, Alan?
I am doing very well, thank you, James. And we have a special guest joining us back on the show is Clinton Festa. Welcome back, Clint.
Thank you guys for having me. I had such a fun time last time, and it was a no-brainer. I wanted to come back. Thank you for having me.
Yes, I'm very glad that you're here, and I owe you an apology. I apologized over text, but I owe you a public apology. In between your first appearance when you talked about Conan the Barbarian and now, you requested to come on to talk about another movie, Some Like It Hot. I don't remember these things. I keep a Google Doc so I don't have to remember, but the Google Doc really only works if I check the Google Doc. And I noticed that you had called dibs on Some Like It Hot after James and I recorded that episode. So I'm sorry, man. My bad.
No problem whatsoever. Let me ask you this, though. How many episodes are you guys up to?
We're in the 400s.
400s. Okay, I'd say you're off the hook. No problem.
Well, I felt bad. Also, by the way, it didn't even occur to me that you had requested the episode. While we were talking about Some Like It Hot, I name dropped you. I was telling James the story of that Halloween in college when you and I got dressed up in drag when I was a Hooters girl and you were a French maid. And even that didn't jog my memory of like, oh yeah, Clint wanted to talk about this movie. So I'm sorry, my bad.
My cross-dressing days that was reserved for Halloween in college, by the way. And it was a lot of fun. But
it was fun.
I've seen the movie recently, and I thought it was ahead of its time. So there's an old movie, yet was pretty forward-thinking, so where do we put it? But one thing they didn't get right, having lived in Florida for 3 years, my wife is from Florida. Yeah, did you happen to notice the mountains in the background on the beach in Florida?
I did not notice that.
That doesn't exist in real life. That must have been California or somewhere else that they filmed that.
Oops. But Clint, you are also a writer. You have written lots of things. I think the last time you were here, you talked about a story that you wrote that was on another podcast called Stories Found. And since then, you've had a second episode produced by them, right?
I have, yeah. They're such an awesome group to work with. So they are out of Austin, Texas, and Ava Love Hannah is the main person there. She's a very funny comedian, storyteller, poet, you name it, actor, graphic artist. So I had a play selected, an audio play called The Experience that they produced recently. It's still on their website. You can check it out really easily. It's first half interview, second half play. The play itself is 8 or 9 minutes long. They do such great work with the actors that they involve and the audio and the effects that they use. It's just great when you have a script and you hand it over to somebody and all you have to do is write it, and they do the rest, because that's where the hard work begins, really, with the editing and the acting and everything.
Well, don't minimize it. I mean, the writing is still a huge part of the puzzle, and your scripts are very, very funny. I have listened to your episodes on Stories Found. They are just delightful. They're really entertaining. I like the interviews as well, because I get to hear you talk, but the stories are very, very funny. The Experience was the most recent one from last fall. Do you want to give a description of what that's about?
Sure. So it's a restaurant that sells emotions in place of, almost in conjunction with serving food. So you don't just order chicken, you order barbecue chicken happiness. And part of what the restaurant delivers is you're going to experience the emotion. So the way that's paired with the food and the way they deliver that is part of the comedy. And sort of the thing that I think Ava saw probably better than I saw was the commentary behind that is, we're not always after the obvious emotions. Some people want to experience different things. DMX had a quote where he said, there ought to be something for any emotion you want to feel. And he says, I do anger. If you want to be angry, you listen to DMX music. But he says there should be something for any emotion. So that's kind of what this restaurant is based on. And as we say, from there, comedy ensues.
Yes, it's a very, very funny piece. And I think it's on all the usual podcast places. Just look for Stories Found. I can put a link to it up on our social media so people can find it. Highly, highly recommend.
Oh, thank you.
Will there be more? Will there be more audio plays?
There's 2 more in the works. They do Micro Mondays, which are like 1 or 2 minute audio plays. They don't pair those with interviews. Those are just sort of quick ones. I've got 2 more coming out with them, pending release. Don't have dates yet, but yes, I'll have 2 more short plays with them. And then beyond that, I'll have to get back to writing if I want anything more produced.
Let me ask you something, Clint.
Yeah.
You are a father, you are a professional, you have kids, a wife. How does someone wind up doing something like this? How does someone find the time to write like you do?
Well, you gotta know what you have time for, and right now it's tough to make time. How I got involved is one thing. A buddy of mine recommended the group. I had never heard of them. It was a local playwrights forum. But the great part about the playwrights forum is it's time efficient. You bring a script, you go there, you have it read. It's a lot of fun, and the actors read it, and then you get feedback. And actually, just tonight before this, there was an online forum, and I had a script read, and I got excellent feedback from fellow playwrights. So that gives you a chance to revise that and feel like you're not chasing your tail trying to figure out how to make it work. So you can do that if you can make time for the forum meetings, and you can do your writing at 11 o'clock on a Friday after the kids go to bed. And the rest is just sort of revising and submitting. So you can kind of make your own schedule. You can take a break for a while. And that's the only reason I can make it work. I could never do what the actors and directors do, where they show up for 6 weeks to scheduled rehearsals and they have to compromise to be on everybody else's schedule and show up for tech week and then all the performances. That's more than I have time for, and I'm also not qualified.
But you also still wind up doing this with all that you do have in your life. So I just think that's fantastic.
Thank you.
I hear what you're saying, Clint, because I've actually been trying to write a little bit more myself lately, and I even feel like if I can just write a couple lines, really, like not even an entire scene in one night, okay, well, I've advanced the story a little bit. Something's always better than nothing, and that is the nice thing about writing, is you can do it on your own schedule.
It's like going on the exercise bicycle for 5 minutes and you feel like shit because you only do 5 minutes, and then you realize it's not the 30 minutes you wanted, an hour you wanted, but it's 5 minutes more.
That's right.
Life would be pretty dull with just going to work and coming home, and I don't think any employer wants you to live like that, right?
That's true.
If we don't make it a habit, it just doesn't happen. But you know what I like making a habit? Having Clint on this podcast. This is the second time.
Sure.
I just love that we go from an early 80s Arnold Schwarzenegger to, an early mid 80s Prince. No knock on Prince. They're just physically almost the opposite kind of build.
They are totally different personas. And I think one thing that's kind of cool, though, is that in both cases, the timing just worked out, where Purple Rain was released just about as long after Conan as we have done since our Conan episode. So in both cases, we're looking at pretty much a 40th anniversary look back.
Right. Well, why did you pick this movie, Clint? What made you want to talk about Purple Rain?
Purple Rain is a movie that I think we all were a little young to see in the theaters when it came out back in July 1984, I think it was. So we definitely missed it. But we grew up with the cultural significance of it, and I do, as a little kid, did see signs of Purple Rain here and there. it might have been a poster in on a wall in an apartment or something like that. And it was like, what the heck is that? And then it was also a movie I didn't see until later on. And I was actually shocked when I enjoyed it. And I watched it for the first time in about 2008. I was like, okay, that was darker than I expected and better than I expected. But it's very much using a lot of the style at the time. So I said, all right, it's been about 40 years now. The context of the show, does it stand the test of time? I said, that's probably a good one to talk about because you get so many different elements. You have the movie making element, the visuals, the music, just a lot to get into.
Well, let's get into it. James, do you want to tell our listeners what this movie's about?
Yeah, I mean, if you're like me and you had never seen this film, Purple Rain is about an aspiring musician known as the Kid, portrayed by Prince. And the Kid performs with his band, The Revolution, at First Avenue, a Minneapolis nightclub. The Kid doesn't get along with the club owner and has a rivalry with Morris Day, the lead singer of another band that performs there, The Time. Things aren't much better for the Kid at home due to his abusive father. The Kid meets a woman named Apollonia who is hoping to break into the music industry. The Kid is hesitant to help her at first, so she joins a group organized by Morris, infuriating the Kid. Meanwhile, two of the Kid's bandmates, Wendy and Lisa, wrote a song, but the Kid refuses to listen to it. When the Kid's father attempts suicide, he decides to change. He performs Wendy and Lisa's song, gets back together with Apollonia, and performs an amazing set at First Avenue, which includes the titular song, Purple Rain. Had you ever seen this film, Al?
I had not. I just watched it earlier today. But when this movie came out in 84, how did it do at the box office, James?
The film had a $7.2 million budget, and with $7 billion, it opened at number one with $7.7 million. And it wound up taking in $68 million domestically and almost $100 million worldwide.
Okay, so that's a pretty big hit. And Clint, before we started recording, you mentioned something that I thought was really interesting, which is it's hard to really categorize this movie. And I think sometimes a movie that's kind of hard to label can not always find an audience at the box office. Clearly, that wasn't a problem for this movie. It did very well. But how would you categorize this movie, Clint?
I think it's as if you were to make a movie based on an album.
Okay.
It's not a documentary. It's not particularly about Prince's life. In fact, when I first saw it, I didn't even realize until the credits rolled that the entire time I'd been watching a character not named Prince, but named the Kid. So there's a narrative there, but the narrative is not the main focus. I mean, you have entire song pieces. This is not something you would normally do, except maybe at the finale of a movie. So you have, instead of one full song in the finale, you have entire full songs throughout, and then the finale is like 3 or 4 songs straight, like you're at a concert. So
Yeah.
it's as though I think they took an album, an exceptionally good album, and said, let's make it a movie. Let's find the movie in this and make it.
That's a good point. And Purple Rain is the movie, which is what we're mainly talking about here, but it's also a song, and it's also the album, and the song is in the movie and on the album, so it can get a little confusing. But the album, it's one of the biggest selling albums of all time. It always pops up on the greatest albums of the 80s, greatest rock albums, greatest albums ever. It is a phenomenal album.
If you're not familiar with everything on the album, you're not going to maybe know every song on the album, but you've heard of Purple Rain, you've heard When Doves Cry, you've heard Let's Go Crazy, and probably heard I Would Die For You. So, I mean, there's 4 songs right there that guarantees a incredible album. The rest could be dogs barking. I mean, but they're not. It's not. It's just a phenomenal album, and I think that has to explain some of the 68 million or whatever the final count was.
You have to remember that back then, soundtracks were a way to get multiple artists. Even though Prince did most of it, he didn't do the entire album. There was the Jungle Love, and there was that Apollonia 6 song, and the Time have songs on there.
Well, not on the Purple Rain album. There are songs by other musicians in the movie, and there were companion albums to this movie. The Time released an album called, what was it, Ice Cream something? That was like their side album, and Apollonia 6 had an album. So those songs aren't on Purple Rain, the Prince album.
Ah, they were all separate.
Right. But let's talk about Prince as an actor, because Prince is really, really amazing as a songwriter, as a singer, as a guitar player. He can really do a lot. Or I guess I should say he could. I hate referring to him in the past tense, but that is correct. But as an actor, I didn't think he was great.
I agree. He has a face that he does, which is what my cat does whenever he's upset or tired or hungry or any emotion at all. It's the same face. It's like,
His resting Prince face?
yes, that's because my cat lacks facial muscles, can't express like a dog. Prince may have had that. He does this like sort of pursed lips, wide-eyed, I can't believe I just saw an alien kind of facial expression. And he uses it quite a lot. Now, it is understated, very understated. But no, I didn't think he was that great as an actor. He kind of threw himself around in the emotional scenes,
Yeah.
but I wasn't really particularly bothered by it because I think he's with a group of people who are musicians first. And I dig that.
Yeah, most of the cast in this movie, they're not actors. I think his parents, the people who play his parents,
Yeah.
Clarence Williams III, who plays his father, and Olga Karlatos, she plays the mom. I think those might be two of the only people in this movie who are actors first and not musicians playing some version of themselves. It's interesting that you said, Clint, that you didn't even realize that Prince isn't playing Prince, because he kind of sort of is. You know, the
Yeah.
story is loosely autobiographical, and he didn't really talk that much about his life. You know, he really had a sense of privacy. So I don't know how much of this movie is autobiographical, where you draw that line. But yeah, this is a dramatic version of him called The Kid, and Apollonia's real name is Apollonia, and Morris Day is playing Morris Day.
Yep.
And, you know, like, all of these guys are playing who they really were.
Yeah, and that's when you look at the cast list, it's like so and so as the same name. And
Right.
the two actors you named who played Prince's parents, they stood out. I mean, they were excellent. But everybody else was, you know, a band member that really was in the revolution. And, you know, the story goes that Prince said, "All right, you're all taking acting classes," and they played along because they were going to be in a movie.
Did he take an acting class?
Yeah, I think he did, but
Okay.
he had other things to focus on, like writing the music, and I don't know.
Let me ask
Yeah.
you something. What did you guys know about Prince in the 80s? I knew him when we were very, very young as Prince versus Michael Jackson.
Right.
And, you know, I don't know whether it was because the obvious, you know, they're both African American, but I think also because there was just this, you know, out of nowhere rise of, you know, perhaps two African American, but just these two unbelievably talented musicians. Because, you know, whether you're a fan of Prince or not, or whether you're a fan of Michael Jackson or not, you know, this is some extraordinary worldly talent.
That's what I remember as well. And as far as music is concerned, When Doves Cry, that's the song that I think if you knew one Prince song, and for a while in my early days, I did know one Prince song, and it was When Doves Cry. So I do remember there was a video for that. And in usual Prince fashion, it was quite sexualized. So
Yeah.
I don't know if that was an issue on MTV or if they loved it because it had that element or what, but I knew more of Prince's music. You know, I knew more about the genius of his abilities. But when I finally watched Purple Rain for the first time, I was expecting When Doves Cry to be much more prominently featured than it ended up being. It was like what he wrote off on his guitar to in the middle of the transition between Act 2 and Act 3 of the movie or whatever.
Yeah, it's basically the montage.
Right.
To me, the funniest thing in that montage is when he flashes back to having sex with Apollonia in a barn, which did not happen prior to that in the movie. Apparently, that was a deleted scene that they excised from the movie but left in the montage, which is pretty weird because then I'm just like, wait, when did they have sex in a barn? I think I would have remembered that.
I just assumed it was part of the montage, that they just at some point during the montage went to a barn and had sex. I actually didn't really question it at all.
But it's a plot point. They don't have a place to go. They can't go to her crappy hotel room, so they have to go to his terrible house where his abusive father lives, and they have to have sex in the basement. So if a barn was an option, then why didn't they just go to the barn? Hey, maybe it's probably the answer. That's probably the reason. Answering my own question. But let's talk a little bit about Prince and Apollonia, or I guess I should say the kid and Apollonia. Their first quote unquote date when they go to the lake and he basically strong arms her into jumping into the lake. Not really. He doesn't tell her she has to, but he really kind of insinuates the only way she will get what she wants is to do everything he says. And then she strips down and jumps in the lake, and then he drives away. I think that scene is supposed to be charming. I thought it was like really shitty and crappy. And, that's probably, looking at it from a post Me Too kind of lens. What did you think about that, Clint?
I agree. I was like, that's not funny. I was wearing leather a minute ago, or whatever she was wearing. Now you have me jumping into a lake in Minnesota, and you think you're cute because it's the wrong lake or something stupid.
Yeah.
To me, I was like, all right, that was a cheesy practical joke designed to basically get some skin in the movie.
Yeah.
And I thought it was a cheap moment. What it did do, it did serve the development of their relationship. It's like one of those things they say when you have problems in a relationship later on, you can look back and see the smaller version of the problem earlier.
Right.
And they did have problems that were similar to him manipulating her and being basically kind of a jerk. Narratively speaking, it does a lot. In a little like capsule of itself, I thought it was kind of stupid.
Right. His treatment of her doesn't really improve. Like, he's kind of nice to her a bit. I mean, he does slap her.
Yeah.
When she says that she is going to join Morris's group, his reaction is a straight slap across the face. And I feel like there's something in this movie that it's trying to say something about abuse, because his father's abusive, so then he becomes abusive. And that's a thing, right? That like abuse can be a cycle. If you grew up in an abusive home, you're more likely to be abusive. Not always, of course, but I wasn't sure if there was more to it than that.
I think it's the character arc that the kid goes through. He has his performance in the very beginning of the movie, and it's colorful, it's cool, it's fun, it's exciting. And then he goes home to that house, and just the shot from the outside, it's such a stark difference. So then you see the other side of him. You really see that, okay, they're going to go a little bleak here in contrast. And I thought artistically, I like that.
Yeah.
But what I think they were trying to do, which it's uncomfortable more today maybe than it was back then, is they show just how messed up in the head he's gotten, and how he's kind of ends up at a crossroad where he's like, you're either going to be a monster or an artist, right? And if you can't tame this side of you, you're just going to basically end up wasting everything you could have had, like his dad did.
Right.
Right. His dad turns out, is a beautifully talented musician who writes these the incredibly complicated piano pieces. And the difference between him and his father is he does slap Apollonia. There is a later scene when he gets mad at her and he pulls his hand back to slap her, and he thinks of his father slapping his mother, and then he goes, "No, I'm not going to do that." Like Clint was saying, it's you either choose to be a monster or you can be an artist. that's his redemption. We are able to actually see that, oh, he is no longer an abusive man. You know, if someone hits your son or your daughter or anyone, you don't let them live with them anymore. You don't go, oh, maybe he's better. No, because the real fear is he's hit you once. He's crossed that line. He might do it again at some point.
Yeah.
But in this particular case, the kid, we know by the director telling us, literally he's flashing back here and chooses not to slap her, that he is redeemed. That's not a very modern thing of like, oh, you know, you're no longer a woman beater and you've learned your ways. It's kind of in that, you really don't get a second chance. But I think in the context of the screenplay, I think that's what it's going for. I really think it's a redemption arc, that he is no longer an abuser. I think that he's a totally good guy according to the intention of the screenwriter, in my opinion.
I think that's what they're saying the way they tell the story. In real life, it wouldn't be so simple.
While I understand what you're saying, James, when he raises the fist to Apollonia, very, very close towards the end of the movie, I still felt like, so he's still an abusive guy. Even though he didn't throw the punch, the fact that he raised the fist, I was like, I fucking hate this guy.
Right.
I agree with you. I'm saying that in an interesting context, it doesn't excuse it, but it also explains it, because the fact that the kid hit Apollonia is not 100% Prince's fault. It's 99% Prince's fault. Probably a couple percentage that asshole father of his that taught him that it's okay to hit when you're angry, and it's not surprising that this happens. But again, he doesn't get a get out jail free. But what it does, I think the movie does give a good explanation that an otherwise good guy is actually going to beat the shit out of a woman when he sees this too. But he's going to be good enough to overcome it. And yeah, Al, I kind of certainly in 2024, and maybe people saw it in 1984 as well, but it's something that definitely does not stand the test of time, in my opinion, to have a redemptive woman beater.
Well, and I think one of the things that we're getting kind of into this topic right away is because that stands out.
Yeah.
Like when you watch this movie, the first thing you see is Let's Go Crazy and the montage of all the different models and all their different eye makeup. Totally different topic, by the way. I'm not connecting the two. But that's what you see first, and you're like, ooh, all right, 1984, here we go. If you're going to watch this movie today, you're going to get caught on to the physical violence element.
Yeah.
And I think the reason we're talking about it so much is because I think we are trying to look at it as best we can from the context of what they were saying at the time within the story versus, hashing it up for today's perspective, where it's just like, nah, no way. Nope.
Moving away from abuse, but also in the vein of how women are treated in this movie, let's talk about Wendy and Lisa, because they are not physically abused, maybe emotionally abused, depending on your definition, but whatever, we won't go into that. But like, the kid is so fucking nasty. He is so dismissive of them, and all they want is to be heard. Literally, they made a tape. They want the kid to listen to it, and he refuses. And like I asked earlier about what is this movie saying about abuse, I was kind of wondering, does this movie have a point, a capital P point about what it's like to be a woman in music? Because Wendy and Lisa are completely ignored. They put up with it. Like I thought several times throughout the movie they were going to say, well, that's it, I'm out of here. And they don't. They keep going back for more. Apollonia wants to make it big in music. Nobody, not Morris Day or the kid, ever asks her, so, can you sing? Let's hear you sing, which you would think would be a fair question to someone who says she wants to be a singer and she's talking to other singers, but no one bothers. So I feel like there's something in there, but I'm not quite sure what it is.
And this is where I got to give credit to the way they made the themes work out in this movie, which is one of the surprising delights of this movie, was that they were able to get a story out of it with good themes that were all so well woven into each other. So I think what you're talking about is For Apollonia, Wendy and Lisa, for them to get on stage, they need permission. They don't get there without a hierarchy. With Wendy and Lisa, it goes to Prince. With Prince, he doesn't get on stage unless he talks to the club owner. There is a hierarchy there, but it does not include the women in the middle or top ranks. So Apollonia needs to go through Morris, who's putting together this girl band. And Wendy and Lisa, they'll fight, but they're still part of the band. They're going to stick it out. They need to go through Prince. But that's the part that's woven into what I think is the capital P you're talking about. The main theme here is Prince becoming the father or not becoming the father. The club owner mentions this. Your dad couldn't cooperate. Your dad threw his talent away because he couldn't just compromise. So Prince is going to have to compromise. What that means is letting go of your ego, letting go of your control, your control freak. The father's a control freak. The father says to the wife, I didn't tell you you could go out. And the wife says, the mom, she says, you never let me do anything. The father's a control freak. Prince is the kid is a control freak. So he doesn't let anybody do anything. And he has to get over that. And the capital P point is when he can learn to do that, he will surpass his father's greatness, not just have the talent, but have the artistic joy.
Yeah.
Because they talk about commercial success, and Prince, the kid, doesn't go for that specifically, but he says you'll achieve the artistic higher ground if you can work with other people, incorporate their ideas. So that connects working with and not just controlling. And the bottom line is I actually got to give Prince, the real Prince, credit for playing such a jerk. That's kind of a risky thing for your image.
That's an unexpected arc I certainly did not expect in this film. I definitely expected the kind of battle of the bands thing at the end.
I really didn't understand that part of the movie, this battle of the bands thing, because the club owner, at one point he says that he doesn't need 4 bands, or he has 4 and he only needs 3. And there's the Time, there's the Revolution, and who's the other one? It's this group that you barely see, Des Dickerson and the Modernaires. Like, who are they? No one says those words in the movie, I don't think. But like, you run this famous nightclub, and you've got Morris Day and the Time, and Prince and the Revolution, and you're like, well, I don't know. I can only have one. Wait, why? Why is this an either-or situation? This is clearly an and situation. You've got 2 amazing acts. Bring in the all-girl group, which, by the way, it's Apollonia and 2 other women. Why is it called Apollonia 6?
Thank you. I have no idea. It's like Ben Folds 5, and you find out there's 3 of them. And you're like, oh, well, two of them left the band, and they didn't change their name, because, darn it, that's what was on the LLC.
Yeah, and about the Battle of the Bands part, the climax of the film, Prince has decided to, swallow his ego, which he should do. He spends all night remixing his bandmates' song. Presumably, he's getting maybe some inspiration from his father's music, and then he's taking his personal talents and he's crafting something together, and more of an apology to Apollonia, because earlier in the film he had made, I guess what you would today call, it's kind of like a diss track. It was pretty mean to her.
Yeah. Darling Nikki. It wasn't just a track, it was a disc performance. It was pointing at your table that you're sitting at.
Yeah. I mean, it was basically pointing out in the middle of a show. Like, that was pretty bad. So this was a little bit of an apology there. But it seems to me that this is the Minneapolis rock funk scene, and Prince is not my cup of tea, but as that is a powerful song, Purple Rain. It's just, it didn't seem to me to be that crowd, that crowd's kind of song. The song he follows it up with, I Would Die For You, that the crowd was, dancing for, I thought that might be better. It doesn't necessarily work with the context of his abuse and, putting all this pain together. I just didn't really jive with what song they were getting from Prince and the band.
They talk about how Prince, you're not bringing in the crowds anymore. It's commercialism, right? So the band owner has to make money, and that's understandable. Prince is an artist. Prince does what makes sense to him artistically, and in real Prince fashion, that's highly sexualized music. And that did not end at Purple Rain. You know, he gets more into that in his later careers and stuff like
Oh
that,
yeah.
right? So he kind of goes into that direction after people start getting upset with him. He basically says, the heck with everybody. I'm going to do what makes sense to me. And the band owner says, like, buddy, this isn't really working. You're just not selling seats. So he maintains his artistic integrity. So he doesn't go like, let's just sell tickets. He doesn't just go commercial, but he enhances his artistry by involving other influences, other people, and that helps him grow as a person. So I think just by the fact that what they're saying in the story is he's using Lisa and Wendy's idea, and he is not just going commercial. When I saw that just the other night, I said, why did he storm off after that performance? Oh, because he thought that that was his last ditch effort to save his band, and he was defiantly being artistic. It just so happens that everybody loved it, but the reason they loved it is because it included other people's influences.
See, I get all of that. But the thing that I kind of found a little confusing is the fact that in the very first scene, when he's doing Let's Go Crazy, he's kicking ass. The kid is putting on one hell of a show, which isn't surprising because he's Prince, right? And so he starts off and he's amazing and the crowd loves him. And then, yeah, when he does Darling Nikki, the crowd doesn't respond to it, but he's also still doing at least what I understand Prince does. And I think at this point, like, my knowledge of Prince is coloring my perception of the kid, and so then that becomes a me problem, not necessarily a movie problem, because I'm watching this movie 40 years later and I know, like you're saying, Clint, about Prince being a hyper sexualized person, and so many of his songs are about sex and all of that. So to me, he's always kind of doing the same thing, and the Darling Nikki performance to me is awesome. Like that's a great Prince performance. Who wouldn't love to see that live? And I get it. Like, I understand what the movie is telling us about why that doesn't work, but I think it does kind of speak to sort of a bigger picture problem I have with this idea that the kid is this underdog. That's hard for me. It's hard for me to see him as an underdog because he's fucking Prince.
Well, you got a point when you're comparing Darling Nikki with Let's Go Crazy, because Darling Nikki is just start to finish, just a sexualized song.
Yeah.
Let's Go Crazy does not lack that, especially towards the end of the song.
Right.
So there's a little inconsistency there with what the movie is showing that I think you're bringing out, is that why is one song working so well and the other song isn't? Are they that different? And for that matter, the club owner says, I can't have any scandals. I want clean, good stuff.
Right.
And then they're ready to sign Apollonia 6, who plays next door or somewhere, and they do sex. I'm sorry, that song was just, I hated that song.
And they're performing in lingerie. The three of them in Apollonia 6 are literally in lingerie while they're on stage. That's okay.
It might be a case of them saying, well, these are the songs that we have as musicians, and we're going to feature these songs one way or another.
Right. There was another movie that was kind of popping into my head. I was thinking of 8 Mile while watching this, and there's some similarities there. It's not exactly apples to apples, but it's a fictionalized version of Eminem. And when that movie starts, Rabbit, played by Eminem, we know that he's talented, but he's shy and he can't work up the courage. Like, that's his problem. It's a very clear narrative of where he starts the movie to where he ends the movie. And here I just felt like, well, he's always Prince. You know,
the kid is not Prince, Al. Prince is able to write Purple Rain, but the kid is unable to write Purple Rain.
Point.
I do want to talk about the ending because this film ends with about 20 minutes straight of performances. It's as if there are 7 entire music videos, including Sex Shooter and Morris Day and the Time. These are entire 4-minute up to like a 9-minute song.
Yeah, Purple Rain, the full version you get is not the 3-minute version you get on the radio typically.
Right.
It's the long version. Yeah.
8 minutes 40.
Yeah.
That was a long version. And there's not more verses. There's like a 2.5-minute Prince going nuts on his guitar.
That ending, to me, makes you ask the question, did I really just watch a movie, or was this not exactly a movie?
That kind of plays into what you were saying earlier about like, how do you categorize this movie when, yeah, it does sort of feel like a music video collection with some story mixed in.
Right.
Or is it the other way around? I guess that depends on your point of view. I do want to talk about one of the songs he plays at the end, which is I Would Die For You. That line is foreshadowed. The father says it while he's like beating up his wife, I would die for you. It looked like to me when they were doing some hand motions for that song that when they say die, they're putting like their finger to their temple like a gun, like for I would die for you. I was like, definitely too soon. The guy just tried to kill himself.
Speaking of too soon, the most savage line of the movie. Oh my goodness, that's killer.
When Moore says, how's the family?
Exactly what I'm thinking of. The first time I saw that, I was like, whoa, 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 whoa. He did not. I rewound it. I watched it like 5 times. I'm like, my goodness.
The father's, I guess, weird arc is that he shoots himself in the head after he is a particularly bad beating that he gives the kid's mom that night. He shoots himself in the head, and during the 20-minute concert epilogue, or really more, just 4 videos stitched together, there's a very, very quick look at the dad who shot himself in the head. He seems to be kind of fine, and the mom completely forgives him. She's like resting on his thighs. I mean, is the gunshot wound proof that he's sorry? I mean, I think he does it because he feels bad about it, but is that the redemptive thing? Is that kind of your, instead of 7 Hail Marys, it's like, all right, shoot yourself in the head, and if you survive it, you are forgiven, son.
I think the answer is that he proved it. He didn't just say, I would die for you. He understands that he can't stop beating his wife, so the only logical option, said with air quotes, is to kill himself, so that way the wife won't be beaten.
I think what they're trying to do there is saying that the father is trying to kill the beast, the mother is trying to love the beast, and the kid is able to control the beast.
Okay.
And that serves his art, because without some form of passion, it's hard to make that form of art. I think it's also a way of saying, like, maybe now we are supposed to look at the father as less of a threat physically, because he is potentially going to be disabled after this. But I think that's where we leave the parents alive and maybe with a little less to worry about than before in terms of potential future violence. I'm not sure if that's exactly what they meant. And one of the things, kind of rewinding before that, what I thought they did a really good job playing with was not knowing who shot who or what happened for a good minute or two of the movie. Do you guys remember, like, when you first see a pool of blood and a gun and whatever, my first thought, probably what you were supposed to think, is, oh no, the father killed the mother.
Yeah.
And then you realize it's maybe better than that, because he was trying to do what he thought was the right thing. They give you very little, I think, to interpret with the parents, except in how it affects the kid. If anything, it's just supposed to be sort of like a fate that the kid has to either conquer or avoid.
This is neither here nor there, but also just I Would Die For You is a great song, and you can understand the sentiment of saying such a thing. But I had a friend once who said that to me, of like, hey man, I love you, bro. If you ever need it, I would totally die for you. It's like, thanks? Like, what do you say to that? What's the situation when I would call that in? Someone breaks into my house, is like, oh, I'm going to kill you. I'm like, oh, actually, hold on. I have a friend. He said he would do that. He'll come by next week if that's okay. We'll set up some time.
You'll kill him instead.
Right.
I got to check with him, make sure it's still, things haven't changed.
Right. Yeah. Just hang on one second. I know you really want to kill someone. We're going to sort this out. Well, Clint, let me ask you, as our very special guest, what do you think about Purple Rain? Does the movie stand the test of time?
Well, you have to kind of cut it up into little pieces. The music definitely does. Certain components that we spent a lot of time talking about, and mostly the physical abuse and things like that, do not stand the test of time. At the time, they were trying to go dark, and I give them credit for trying to produce art. Overall, I do not think it stands the test of time. I think it's worth watching. It's enjoyable, but it's pretty dated. I think it was very much of the time, and I kind of wonder if even 10 years after it came out, if it stood the test of time. I think today, no.
Oh yeah, Al, what do you think? Does Purple Rain stand the test of time?
I think you said that very well, Clint. I really agree with you. Purple Rain, the song, stands the test of time. Purple Rain, the album, definitely stands the test of time. Purple Rain, the movie? No, I really don't think it does. There's just too much in here that doesn't work. And you mentioned early on that, like, oh, was this a documentary? I think I would have liked a Prince documentary more. And that's also just because I'm a music nerd and I like that sort of thing. But seeing Prince struggle in the 80s or whenever, I would be in for that. But seeing this movie, which is kind of fictionalized, but kind of based on his story, but also just an excuse to show a lot of music videos. And yeah, they're trying to do some cool, interesting narrative stuff, but it doesn't really work. You know, these things aren't really fleshed out the right way. And look, telling stories about abuse, that's a lot. That's deep. Maybe that's not the best fit for a vehicle that's just supposed to be kind of an excuse to see Prince rocking out shirtless for a long period of time. Maybe those things just don't go together that well. We talked about Prince being a great musician and a great guitar player and a great singer. He's also a really good ventriloquist. That one scene,
yeah, he was.
Yeah, like who knew? I did not know that.
That's such a cool scene. And sorry to jump in on you here, but like,
no, please.
I gotta say before I forget, because we're almost wrapping it up, is I have to say I loved Morris as the villain. He was so much fun and is such a great energetic contrast to Prince's dark brooding side. I just absolutely loved him. I thought he did such an awesome fun job, fit right in. I loved him as the villain.
Same.
I totally agree. He's great. Also not the world's greatest actor, you know, and that's not his thing. He's a singer and he's an amazing singer. And even forgetting about all the abuse stuff, just the arc of the kid, I just don't see him as the underdog. I don't see him struggling. After the Darling Nikki performance, there's this idea that nobody understands your music but you. You are so out there that you're just playing for yourself. And sometimes that's true, right? Sometimes there's a genius, whether it's musically or a writer or any kind of artist or a scientist or whatever, who is revolutionary, who they are ahead of their time. I think Prince is unbelievably talented. I don't know that he was that revolutionary. I mean, he was combining rock and soul and R&B and funk in a way that's amazing. And I love it. I love listening to his music. But also, isn't that what Sly and the Family Stone did and what George Clinton and Parliament Funkadelic were doing? Like, there's a part of that that's a little distasteful because this is a movie that Prince got made. Prince wanted to make a movie.
Yeah.
He kind of told Warner Brothers, hey, you better make me the star of a movie. And in this movie, he looks great throughout, even when he's supposed to be the underdog, even when he's an asshole. He still looks really good. You know, he is an amazing talent, start to finish. And he's kind of saying, well, I'm a genius. And when somebody tells you that they're a genius, then I find that off-putting because, well, are you or are you just telling me?
Yeah, but the Prince is not the kid. The kid says that. The kid is wrong. The kid is arrogant.
Yes. Also, though, so is Prince. Prince was known for being super arrogant. Prince was known for not having much of a sense of humor. Weird Al loves to tell the story about how he got shot down by Prince. He had all of these great parody ideas. Prince always said no. Prince told him at the Grammys he wasn't allowed to make eye contact with him. In real life, he kicked Wendy and Lisa out of the Revolution because they were expressing too many opinions. That's a life imitating art. But, he's not really learning the lesson that he could have learned from the movie.
The only counterpoint I'd make to that is, he's so arrogant to say all these things, is that he did sell 25 million copies of the soundtrack of this film. So people have really thought that this is quite a brilliant film, or rather soundtrack. I see what you're saying, that I'm not sure he was not revolutionary. Yeah, but you're right, George Clinton, those funk people, but funk guys, but
Those funk
did
guys.
some weird stuff.
I gotta say, George Clinton and those funk people is the funniest thing I've ever heard. My point is this. Even though I think that Prince is a genius, I just don't like it when he tells me that he's a genius. And yeah, I know it's the kid, kinda, but also it's basically Prince. But also, I do want to say, Clint, that I 100% agree with you about this movie being enjoyable. I'm really, really glad that I watched it just as a Prince fan. I can't believe I never saw it. I think it's definitely worth watching, especially if you like Prince. But no, I don't think it stands the test of time. James, what do you think?
I did not like that entire abusive the storyline, how it went down. Even if he has the abusive father, it's a terrible arc. I mean, the fact that he hit her, he didn't need to. You could talk about how he gets into fights, and as a kid, he got into all kinds of fights. Yeah, because he got the shit beaten out of him. This is the kind of house he grew up in. But he can choose not to slap her earlier. I found Morris Day to be really funny. And it's actually kind of some of the subtle things that he says. His attempted pickups of Apollonia. There's a great part where he goes to her and he goes, I just got a brass bed put in with a waterbed mattress. That is just so amazing as a pickup line, but also just so 80s because, I don't think a waterbed was sold after the year 2000. But this movie might be great if you're a Prince fan. I am not a Prince fan. There's got to be 35 minutes straight of just Prince singing. And for me, I just don't want to see that. If it was montages,
that's sacrilege.
I'm sorry. I will say this. The day that Prince died, I was driving home on a long trip, and SiriusXM had a Prince station that they put on. They usually do it for the seasonal stuff or whatever they're doing at the moment. They made it Prince for like a week or two, nonstop 24 hours. And I said, you know what? I'm going to listen to Prince the entire hour ride home. And I listened, and I was like, oh, here's When Doves Cry. And then they even put a couple songs. I didn't realize Prince wrote so many hits for other people.
Manic Monday by the Bangles.
Right.
And Sinead O'Connor's big hit. I think he wrote
Nothing
that
Compares
for her.
to You.
Well, that was a cover, yeah.
Al, favorite Prince song?
I mean, Raspberry Beret, Little Red Corvette, Seven, I don't know.
All right, if you had to name one, what would you say, Glenn?
Well, okay, so I have this bug spray, and it's called Seven. And I spray this tree that gets eaten up by Japanese beetles, and I cannot help it. Every time I do that treatment, like in the spring or whenever, I was like, oh, Seven, and I'll watch them fall. I'm going to kill all the beetles. But that being said, Let's Go Crazy.
Okay, that is a good one.
Mine is a song that I heard on that play after Prince died. I'd never heard of this song called "My Name Is Prince,"
and I am funky.
And I'm funky. My name is Prince, the one and only. And it's got a great line in it, a real great lyric that says, "My name is Prince. Don't want to be king because I've seen the top, and it's just a dream." I love that line because I always wondered, why would you name yourself Prince? It was always Prince versus Michael Jackson. What was Michael Jackson's name? The King of Pop. He says, why would you want to be a king? I like being a prince.
But that was his name.
It comes from his father.
Yeah.
See, I actually didn't know that his name was Prince. For me, his songs, I could have heard When Doves Cry, I Would Die For You. And part of Purple Rain, but that 9-minute song, that was a long time. I do like hearing his guitar. He kind of twerked before there was twerking. He just kind of turned around and his butt kind of just vibrated at one point. Yeah. So that was interesting. He grabbed his crotch a lot like Michael Jackson. I didn't know that was a Prince thing. But for me, I hated the way the abuse line went, and just too much straight up music videos for me. So for me, this film doesn't stand the time for a number of reasons.
Can I add 3 final thoughts before we wrap up?
Go for it.
All right, the stage manager or the stage worker or whatever, a big Santa Claus looking guy wearing rainbow suspenders. Look for it.
Okay.
Also, there's an underpass with spray paint graffiti. I think it was on the left side. And you see a little symbol there, and it's sort of an androgynous male-female symbol combined or something like that. Remember, this is 1984, before, when he became a symbol. It's not the full Prince symbol, but it was like hieroglyphics of Prince. It was like Prince hieroglyphics.
It's like an early version of it.
Yeah. So that's not an accident, right?
Right.
It's on his gas tank, too, on his motorcycle.
So you can kind of see that coming, later down the road. But the one thing that if you do watch this movie, I would suggest, especially for the song numbers, turn on closed captions. Because you know how Prince writes his lyrics. Did you guys happen to catch that?
Yes, I did see that. I forgot to mention that. It has U for Y-O-U and as a number 2 whenever he says T-O. I love that. I absolutely love that.
Yeah, watch this with the captions on, especially for the songs, because it pulls the closed captions straight out of the song lyrics. It must. Just for a good laugh, you'll see, oh my gosh, there it is.
See, I watched the movie on DVD and it had no captions during the songs. Only for dialogue.
Did it just have the musical notes and it says music playing?
No, it didn't even have that. It's an old DVD. Here, I have it here. It's the 20th anniversary. So this is a 20-year-old DVD I got from the library. All right. Well, Clint, thank you so much for coming back on the show. Thank you for getting me to watch Purple Rain. Thank you for talking with us about Purple Rain. And I know what you want to do next. Can I spoil it, or should we leave the listeners waiting?
I don't know. Do you want to leave me waiting in suspense, or do you want to let me know? Tell me.
Oh, now I don't want to say it. Now I want to keep you in suspense, James. How about this? I will give you this tiny bit of a hint. Purple Rain was more up my alley. This next movie that Clint wants to do will be more up your alley, James. You will appreciate it more than I will, I think. Let's keep that as a tease. I hope it's not too long before you come back, Clint, because this is really, really fun. I love having you on. It's great catching up. It's great talking. Thank you. Thank you for coming back on the show.
Well, you guys see I'm wearing my Test of Time sweater that I think I get for being in the 2-timers club. So if we're gonna do the 3-timers and beyond, then yeah, I'm gonna be showing up with a hat and a refrigerator magnet and all sorts of gear.
I love it. I love that you're repping the merch.
Al, if any of our listeners are in the 0-timers club, but they're in the Test of Time fan club, could they get themselves a sweatshirt like Clinton's wearing?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, just go to testoftimepod.com. In the upper left corner, there's a button that says merch. Click on that. You'll go to our TeePublic store and you can get yourself a t-shirt, a tank top, a hoodie, a cell phone case, whatever. Because, you just might want to see our cartoon faces with you everywhere you go.
Are there Test of Time thongs or Speedos?
Not yet.
Okay, coming soon?
Probably not. You could even put it on a onesie. I should make that for my niece, actually. That would be a great birthday present.
It's actually really kind of funny for a 3-month-old to talk about whether a 3-month-old stands the test of time or not.
My sister-in-law would roll her eyes. All right, but thank you again, Clint. This has been awesome. That's going to do it for us this week. Next week, we have more special guests coming on the show. Our moms are coming on for our Mother's Day episode, and we're going to talk about To Kill a Mockingbird. I am really, really excited to have our moms back on the show. It's become kind of a Mother's Day tradition, and that's going to be a good one. Until then, we want to hear from you guys. We are at Test of Time Pod on Facebook, X, Instagram, and Threads. And we'll see you next time. Bye, everybody.
Bye.